Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Sever7, and today we are checking out the Poikilo Salvator M, M standing for mid-tech, and that is with the ultimate goal of seeing if it's worth adding to your collection or your daily carry rotation. Now, this knife was provided by Poikilo as a loaner. I don't get to keep it. It's going to go right back to them. And this knife was designed and OEM'd by Poikilo. Before we jump into it, the first thing I want to say is I appreciate all the subscribers, likes, comments, and interactions. You guys have been fantastic. Please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much. All right, now jumping into it, we've got full titanium, smooth texture scales front and back. We have no hardware up front except for the pivot. And then on the back, we've got a T8 screw for the pocket clip, T8 for the lock bar insert, and then a T8 for the pivot screw. We do have this incredibly attractive deep carry milled zircotai pocket clip. And you know, the camera's not doing it justice, but this thing is gorgeous. We do have a full zircotai backspacer with kind of like this sandwich pattern, which I actually have no clue how they accomplished that. But it looks fantastic. Super precision machining. And then when you get about halfway down, you've got this jimping. Now, this jimping is not going to be functional. I think it was just kind of a flex to say, hey, we can do this. And then we do have a spot. Man, look at that. That backspacer goes all the way around and maintains that sandwich pattern. That is absolutely fantastic. Then we got a spot for a lanyard. Now, as far as the ergonomics goes, this part of the handle where your fingers are going to be is nice and neutral. So this is going to provide for my large, extra large hands. It's going to provide a good, comfortable grip. It'll give me room to choke up, and it's going to give me room to choke back. No hot spots unless you squeeze down, like white knuckle it as hard as you can. Then you're going to feel right down here where the inside isn't knocked down. You're going to feel a hot spot. That really is only in extreme cases, though, when you are gripping it as hard as you can. But on the sides here, we've got some chamfering. And then we do have it knocked down on the inside as well. So really the hot spots would come from right here. And once again, it's only if you're squeezing it pretty much as hard as you can. Now, as far as the weight goes, I mean, this knife is pretty huge. So it's going to be self-evident that it's going to feel weighty. The good news is we are perfectly balanced. So we're not butt heavy, we're not blade heavy, and that's going to go a long way towards helping the knife feel lighter than what it is. So overall, very good ergos, very comfortable knife. We do have jimping up here. But this jimping is mainly for indexing. It's not going to be functional. But it does still add a nice touch. We have a really beautiful compound ground Tonto style blade. We've got a really handsome swedge right up here. And just appreciating that DLC for a second. Here, let me buff that out. Looks like whenever I touched it with my thumb, I left some hand oil behind. There we go, much better. But this is a true mirror DLC. Let me see if I can get something to reflect off of it. There we go. So you can kind of see my hand. And I'm actually holding a watch. There's the watch face, glowing. Or not glowing, but, you know, reflecting light. This guy right here. But yeah, this finish is absolutely fantastic. And then we even have a semi-reflective finish on the satin flats. We do have a full flat grind, or not a full, but we do have a flat grind on the blade, and we are rocking Bowler M398. So M398 is like a beefed up version of M390. It's going to have exceptional edge retention, good corrosion, but the toughness is going to be, you know, pretty low. So avoid batoning, avoid prying, and you'll be fine. And then you can enjoy the, you know, superior edge retention and the already good corrosion resistance. But this DLC finish is going to add to that corrosion resistance. Right? It's just going to help protect the blade from rust and, you know, stuff like that. Now, as far as the detent goes, it's a medium detent, but you're also contending with the weight of the blade. You know, this blade being pretty heavy. Despite that, though, it's fairly easy to deploy. You're not going to be struggling with it. Now, because their tolerances are so tight, with the way they machine these, you know, you can kind of see you have barely any room. I tried to get that in there. Yeah, you've got barely any room on the side of the blade. That's not a bad thing. That just means their tolerances are super tight. And if you look down here, we are perfectly centered. But what that means is, just like if you get, you know, a brand new Riot, or even like a brand new Wii, they have a break-in period, right? So out of the box, this knife isn't going to feel super smooth. It's not going to have quite this level of snappy action, right? You have to break it in a little bit. I'm not saying you're going to break it in for, you know, weeks, but, you know, the first couple of days is going to be a break-in period. You want to oil it, and then flip it, and then give it just a little bit of time, and then it'll flip open as easily as you see me doing it here. Now, as far as the acoustics go, the acoustics on the way up sound really nice. Very thick and kind of a chunky sound. On the way down, it's fairly dull, but I'm going to attribute that to having the backspacer. There just isn't as much room for the sound to reverberate on the way down, so it's not quite as loud. As far as the close goes, it's a single shake shut close. With time, though, you can kind of see it wants to be hydraulic. Here, let me. So with time, this will become a hydraulic close. It just needs to break in a little bit more. Lock bar access is plenty easy. They've got it sticking out a little bit past the show side scale, and they have it chamfered and knocked down on the inside, which means it takes no effort to come in here, disengage, let the blade shut, give it a shake, and it'll close. Now, overall length on this knife is going to be 8.5 inches, definitely full-size territory. And that's with a blade length of 3.88 inches. And that's going to give us one of the best blade to handle ratios we've seen so far at 0.83 or 83%. Now we're going to put it up against the Vanguard Knives Cheetah, and it's going to dwarf it by about 1 3/4 inches. We're going to put it up against the TW Price Dawn V3, which is also going to get dwarfed by about 2 full inches. And lastly, We're going to put it up against the Civivi Altus. And once again, it is completely dwarfed. Civivi Altus is like 80% the size, 75% the size. So, like I said, this knife is pretty huge. As far as the weight goes, this knife comes in at 5.1 ounces, which I don't think is going to come as a shock to anybody. I think for how much knife you're getting, I think that weight's perfectly fine. And it, you know, in pocket, it might feel a little heavy, but in hand, even though it's hefty because of its balance, you can still, you know, use it nimbly, right? Like you still feel like you have full control over the blade. You can do all your cuts, you know, you can kind of pinch it right here in the middle and you're going to feel in total control. It's not going to be exhausting. It's not going to wear you down after, you know, 10 minutes of cutting or nothing like that. So overall, I would say despite the weight being on the hefty side, still a fantastic EDC knife. I would say the thumb studs could be a little more comfortable. But like I said, once this broke in, the thumb studs felt fine. It was more the fact that the tolerances kind of had the knife tightened up. And then whenever you would go to deploy it, since the knife hadn't broken in yet, there was a lot of resistance, right? And that made the thumb studs feel painful, right, out of the gate. But now that it's broken in, the thumb studs feel more or less fine. No major issues with them or anything like that. Now, as far as the cost goes, like I said, this is the Salvator M, right? So this is a mid-tech. So whenever you're talking knives, you've got your production knives, you've got your mid-tech knives, and then you've got your customs, all right? So the price on this is going to be higher than what a regular production Poikilo would be, right? And part of that is because, you know, they're going to have some hands-on with it after it's done. They're going to go through and physically do the quality inspections. They're giving you the full Zircotai pocket clip, the full wraparound Zircotai backspacer, the DLC finish, right? And all these things add to the cost. So this knife is coming in at $630. And my recommendation, if that's a little bit out of the price range, which is totally fair, $630 is a ton of money, right? For some people, that's like a rent payment. You know what I'm saying? So I'll link White Mountain Knives below. Whenever they have it in stock, you get 10% off with my code SEVER7. And that would take $63 off the top and drop this down to about $567, $570. So, oh no, $567. Yeah, that's right. So it saves you a good chunk of change. Do I think this knife is worth $630? Yes, I do. I absolutely do. You know, with the upgraded blade steel of M398, with all the Zircotai that they're giving you, the DLC, mirror DLC on the blade, you know, and the fact that their fit, finish, and tolerances are a step above of what we normally see from like Riot, Best Tech. You know, if those two companies were to go to the next level, this is where they would be, right? So the machining alone demands a higher price tag. But then when you factor in everything else that you're getting, yeah, the price tag of $630 is going to be right in line with where this knife should be. And if you imagine like some of the more premium Riots, whenever they give you, you know, the zirconium or they give you the Damascus, you know, they're often reaching into that $500, $600, sometimes more, $500 or $600 price range, right? So while $630 objectively is a lot of money for a pocket knife, whenever you compare it to its realistic competition, you know, and factor in the things that this knife gives you above its competition, $630 is a great price. And then you knock off 10% and then money, right? I mean, at $570, $567, I'd say this knife is pretty darn close to a steal. And I know that's hard for some people to hear, because of how much money that is for a pocket knife. Just to be transparent, you can find a pocket knife that will do everything you need it to for day-to-day EDC, a good one, for about 30 bucks, right? You can get the Pyrite Light. You can step up a few bucks and get the Civivi Altus, right? This one here is about 60 bucks. This thing will do everything you need it to. It'll cut boxes, it's going to cut paper, and it's going to do a good job, and it's going to be a joy to use, right? It's going to be fidgety. So yeah, I don't want you to sit there and think, holy cow, like that's so much money for a pocket knife. Well, it's not necessary. Well, you're right. That is a lot of money for a pocket knife, and it's not necessary to spend 630 bucks. But if you're looking for a 30 or 40 or $50 knife, then this knife really isn't meant for you. And that's okay. I've got plenty of friends that collect knives below 50 bucks, and they love their collections. And that's because there's a lot of really great stuff that you can find for under 50 bucks. But this one here is going to be very much premium enthusiast territory, right? The people that are in this range aren't necessarily worried about the price as much as they are something that brings something different to the table, right? Poikilo is still a newer company. Honking huge knives like this are not something that we see every day. Usually the smaller knives are way more popular. And then the fit, finish, and quality is something that's way more apparent once you get this knife in hand. So, if you hear the price tag and you see the knife and you're like, holy cow, not worth it, that is a super valid opinion to have. But just know that this knife is targeted to a very niche audience. And if you're not part of that audience, nothing wrong with that. But that's why, the value prospect of this knife might not be for you. Now, I am part of the audience that this knife is targeted for, and I love it. It's unfortunate that I don't get to keep it, and if I had to say, I wouldn't send it back. Absolutely fantastic knife, for my needs and for my aesthetic. I love this thing. So obviously, would I carry it? Yes. Would I collect it? Yes. Typically, collecting and carrying typically knives for me don't fall into both categories. Typically, I have knives that I would carry, and they wouldn't be collector knives for me, or I have knives that I collect, and they wouldn't be carry knives for me. But this one, just getting it in hand kind of screams, use me. Put me to work. So this one would be a permanent part of my collection, but it would also be a daily carry for me. Right? Now, my question for you is this something that would find its way into your collection? Or is it something that you would use as a daily carry knife? Maybe both, right? Let me know down in the comments. And I do want to say I appreciate the subscribers, the likes, the comments. All that support means the world to me. You guys have been fantastic. I will have this knife linked down below. I'm going to link Poikilo blades at White Mountain Knives with my code SEVN. That way, if you guys decide to get it, you guys can take advantage of that 10% discount. And then if you like the video, hit the like button. And if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. And until the next time, peace.